drive the promoter first. We have the test promoter with this standard junction and the reporter downstream here. So what we did was that we transformed this device, integrated into the cell. We go on the plates and then we inoculate it, and then we measure the fluorescence at the beginning, right after the plate cultures, at the exponential phase, and then at the stationary phase. Okay? And what I show here is a negative control. You can see here that it doesn't move at all, or this distribution of fluorescence seems to overlap. Right? Now we can use the feedback, the Arabino's useful promoter, as a positive control, and we show here that this promoter has a growth phase response. What you see here, the blue one is during the exponential phase, and the red one is at the stationary phase. Right? So you see this upregulation here. Right? Now you can compare this to feedback. So why do we do that? So from the previous section, we showed that these Arabino's promoters can be used to drive a functional switch. Right? So these promoters seem to have about the same fold change as feedback. So that means that it should be good enough for driving the state switching also. But one thing to note is that the basal level of this promoter during the exponential phase, I mean, during earlier times of the cultures, is about the same as the activated output from this promoter. So what it means is that if you have something that works with this promoter, when you use this promoter instead, you might expect a failure. You might expect a thing that switched too early. Okay, so we set out to build that. You have this integrated expansion cassette, these flipping elements. Again, we put it inside the cell, inoculate it, and make the measurements at the beginning and at the end of the culture. And we start from the weakest BCD, the weakest translational efficiency. Turns out that this worked pretty well with Arabino's promoter. What you see here, again, is the fluorescence result. So this contour represents the distribution of the fluorescence in the population of the cell. So you start here at the beginning, the blue one. You have a lot of green and low red. And then at the end, after induction, you go to red and then green. So it's worked fine. And then we use the same cassette with the growth phase promoter. As what we expect from the previous slide is that because that promoter is much stronger, right? So we expect a failure. And this is actually what we see. What you see here is that even at the beginning of the cultures, even before we let it go to the stationary phase, this thing already switched toward the green state. This is what we expected because this motor is much stronger. Right? Now, because even the weakest BCD is still too strong, another trick to use is to add this degradation tag to destabilize the protein. And what we have is the following. So if you use this design, then you have the things that, again, doesn't work. But this is work because it doesn't switch the state at all before or after the growth. Right? And by using a stronger and stronger BCD in the collections, you have this kind of behavior. So in the stationary phase, you go to more and more completion. And at the end, you get this working construct in which it holds the state at the beginning, and then at the end of the cultures, it goes to the complete flip state. Okay? But if the cassette is too strong, again, it's broken. Right? Now, okay, so we have this thing working. Now let's look closely on how this thing behaves over time. So we have this construct, this particular BCD and degradation tags, and it's working. Now, what we want to know next is that what is actually this thing do to the signal that's passing through it, right? Because remember that one of the application of this device is that we want to use this type of promoter to drive the timing of the state switching. Now the question is that should we just use this promoter to drive the state, to drive the genome interest directly, or should we have this cassette function as a relay switch. Right? So we compare the behavior of this one to the behavior of this one, which have this promoter drive this indirectly. So what we have is the following. This is the time cost measurements of the fluorescence output, 0 to 16 out. Again, this cloud, this contour that you see here is the distribution of the fluorescence in the cell. In both cases, you see the increase of the fluorescence over time, as expected. But the difference is that for the blue one, for this guy, first, you have a much wider distribution of the fluorescence in the population, right? You have more variance. And also, it seems to oscillate a little bit over time, up here, and then down a little bit, and then up here again. On the contrary, for this construct, you have a narrow distribution and monotonously increase in the output, right? So what we think happening is that by passing through this guy, it functions like an integrator. So what it does is that once you switch the state, you can't go back, right? So by having this thing in the middle, it eliminates this fluctuation in the expression that happens over time. So we show in these sections that with this new framework, we can rationally put together a working autonomous growth phase switch. Right. Now, okay, there's still something else that that you could be doing in the future that we haven't done yet. For example, at the system design level, you could also looking at how the host and the synthetic circuit interact with one another. Right? We didn't take into that account. We just simulate the circuit independently. At the device level, for example, if you look closely, sometimes the output of different types of logics or devices are not the same. Right? By normalize that, it should simplify the process of putting them together into a larger device. The logic gate family that you see here is going one direction. There's a way, there's preliminary work that we have done in the past to show that it should be possible also to let that operate in real time. So respond to the current input signal. And maybe there's some other way to do directionality control. Instead of using this excision, which is poorly understood, we might have other mechanisms that allow us to control the direction easier. And here, we show that we have the cassette collection that we can match to this input promoter that's really complex. But we haven't shown that, is that work in general? If we have other promoter with different range, is it going to work or not, right? And another thing is that we show it for the set case. It would be nice if you also have similar thing for the reset. Now you can have any two input and you plug in and it works for the first time. No more hundreds of constructs and 3 years of optimization. Right? And here's the list of publications that related to each of this work that I just present. Right? And yeah, thank you very much. So I actually have the actual experience section, but maybe as it frees right now, you have a question, you can ask of the audience.
Okay, so there'll be a period where you can give input and he'll give output for a little while, and then I guess acknowledgements, and then we'll have a period where it's just the 5 committee members asking Tom questions. So other questions?
Yep.
What applications do you have in mind for some of the devices that you have built?
So for the last one, it's pretty clear in the sense that you can use it for controlling timing of expression. Mm-hmm. What I haven't shown you there was that I showed you one case that you can have a thing that flips at the cell floor to a certain state. We have also shown that by having that flipping elements that we can tune, we can actually control the timing of how fast it switches. Right? So you can say like, okay, I want this thing to express, but not right now, and sometime later. Right? For the logics, of course, you can use it to build a cell that responds to multiple signals. The simplest one is going to be the AND gate, for example. Has the cell ever exposed to A and B at all in the past? Right? Something like that. Yeah. Oh, okay. So maybe acknowledgement. So there's so many people that helped with this work and helped me in the past years. I probably missed a lot of them here. I think this is just in the audio of like who sit close to me. In the lab. But yeah, and then thanks a lot for the committee's member and KC who couldn't be here in the session. But yeah, he was helping me a lot also during the fall. And I'm out here in the lab. It's a lot of fun. And of course, Ocalidias, it's like the caring mom of the department. So particular thanks to Drew. So before I came to Stanford, I talked to my advisor at Caltech, and he's like, we should go work with Drew because Drew tried to build Tails and Treehouse. And so I didn't end up building Tails and Treehouse over the past 6 years. I'm disappointed, but I ended up building something that slightly less interesting, but still interesting. And actually, like I look at my diary today. Actually, like marked the complete 5 years since I decided to join the lab. It was on the 29th of 2009 that I present like my rotation project in the end. And Drew is like, want to join the lab? And it's like, okay, let's discuss about it. And yeah, I nearly joined the lab. And Drew has been really helpful in helping me focus. I usually have a lot of idea. And it's like, oh yeah, I have this like 30 minute idea. And Drew is like, stop. focus, cut the fat, focus. Jerome, he was a postdoc in the lab. He did all the pioneering work in the memory logic experimentally. So when I focused mostly at the beginning on the model, so he's the one doing those like branching work on getting this recombination off the ground. So Jerome also has a very interesting working style. So one of the lab members told me that Jerome is like Picasso. So he's really messy, he's like running around, but he did beautiful work. So I hope he's here. And the lab, we missed Olivia photos, couldn't find it, but particularly thanks to Paul and Monica. It's been really fun to have you and all the great advice. Some undergrad that I worked with in the past, and also Smoky Lab. Nice big and happy family. Stanford has been really nice. Past 6 years, gone really fast. The Thai communities, the bioengineering communities. You remember this is like one of the shows I put together with Ross Alman and the Kwabina. There was like a monologue. It was really fun back then. And like this is like those then illegal bike business. Illegal. So, yeah. And particular thanks to this poster. So my girlfriend couldn't be here, but this poster that we sent around. And so, yeah, particular thanks to that. And in the end, for the families, so I was one of those kids that going, I want to be a scientist, I want to be an astronaut. And my dad said, yeah, go ahead, be an astronaut. But yeah, and so they're in Thailand right now. Yeah, and I thank them a lot for all the support all this year. Yep, thank you very much.